guys, so for this one, we borrowed 150,000. Oh, sorry, let me actually just show you the timeline first, then I'll move down to the calculation. Okay, so there were two different interest rates. They said 14% per annum for the first 3 years. So there's my 14%. And then it was 10.5% compounded quarterly for the last 2 years. So 10.5 over 400 there. They wanted us to find the value of his final payment, which was there, the $8. But they said that he took out a loan for 150,000, so that is his T0 amount. And that we're going to take all the way to the end. But then he made 3 payments on this loan. All right, so all 3 of those payments we have to subtract because they make the loan amount less. So 5,000 he made at the end of the first year, so that's minus 5,000. And guys, just the wording for this question was different from what we did before. So it said 5,000 Rand after 1 year, so I think we'll find it back in T1, right? But then they said 10,000 Rand 2 years later. They're not saying 2 years after the loan was taken out, they're saying 2 years later, right? So that means 2 years after this payment. So 2 years after T1. So that's why that one is at T3. So you might have misunderstood that. Right? If they meant 2 years, if they meant like at T2, they would have said 2 years after the loan was taken out. Okay, and then they said a final payment of X Rand at the end of the 5-year period. So that is at T. Okay, so those are the 3 payments, minus 5,000, minus 10,000, and then negative X. And then just like we did yesterday, once he's made the final payment, the loan is paid off, so he's going to owe 0. Okay, so that is the calculation. Again, obviously you write everything in one line and then you convert it into one line and then you can go over 2 lines. So that is the first one, that's the loan that's going all the way to the end of the 5-year period. Then that's the first payment that was made at T. Just right. Oh yes, that's a 3. Sorry guys, just make sure that's a 3. It will not look at that. The 3. And then the first payment was made at the end of the first year, so it was at that interest rate for 2 years, and then the other interest rate for another 2 years. If you take times 4 for that second one, then that's the payment of 10,000 Rand, and then it's the final payment of 8. And then that's equal to 0, right? Because the whole loan has not been paid. Now, if you're solving for X there, you just have X on its own here. All you need to actually do in this one is to take all of those 3 terms over to the other side, right? So we have a negative X over here. Or what you could have done, and some of you might have done that, is you could have moved the X to that side, right? The negative X, in which case it would become positive X, and then you just have everything on the left-hand side, which is fine. But I like having my X on the left and across. But it's fine, guys. You're not actually going to get marks for this thing, if this makes sense. So they give lots of marks for this line, and then they usually give 2 marks for the final answer. Because 1, you need to get a mark if the answer is correct, and 2, it's a lot of stuff. Right, so we don't usually look at this calculation. So that one is positive when you move it, it's going to become negative. That one is negative when you move it, it becomes positive. That one is also negative when you move it, also becomes positive. Right? Now, guys, when you type all of this in, you will get a negative answer, but that's because that's negative X. All right, so what can you do if you have a negative in front? What must you actually do with that negative one? Divide by negative. Okay, so then X is just that amount. Did anyone get this? Okay. 1, yes. Oh, we did this. Okay. All right, guys. Sometimes you can have everything set up properly, but your answer is wrong. And that's usually half the limit. All right, you'll obviously still get marks for this. So just in terms of mark allocation, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So that's 9 to make them equal to 0, and then they would probably just give 1 mark to 5. And that would be an 8 mark. Right, but if everything else is okay, or even if you made one mistake here, right? Say for example, that bracket was wrong, you made it a 3 times 4 by accident. We'll just lose that one, right? You'll get everything else. So you can still get 7 out of 8, even if your answer is not correct. Because we literally, if we're marking this question, it's a calculator. If you've made a mistake, you calculate what the answer would be with your mistake. So take ages, but we do see Right, any questions on this one, right? Yes. No, so you would get 7 for this, and then we'll just do that. Again, let's look at the revision exercise. So question 2 was a depreciation question. So we need to remember that when you are depreciating, it's the minus formula. So they asked there, how long will it take for, I don't remember what it was, some item to depreciate. The original value was 450,000, now it's depreciating to 220,000. So the after amount, right, the final amount, 220, that's A. The original value was 450,000. 1 minus, we said that it was 12% on the straight line method. So that's why I've used this formula. Okay. Now again, sorry, what I did was I just swapped sides. I wanted to have this on the side. So what you need to do to get rid of this 450,000, you have to divide by 220,000 divided by 450,000. Now guys, if you type that in, this is what comes up, right? The simplified fraction. You can press HB and write the decimal, but you don't have to. Then you need to minus 1. And now guys, and also just notice that instead of writing negative 12 over 100 times in every time, I just wrote it as one thing, right? Because if we have something like 3 times x, we can write that as 3x, right? That's basically what I did here. Negative 12 over 100 times n, I just wrote as negative 12 over 100n. Right? So I just left off that time symbol. But you can keep writing the time symbol, there's no problem with that. So now here, if you left with this, the number in front of n is negative 12 over 100. So you have to divide the other side by negative 12 over 100. Right? So you take your answer button on the calculator, divided by negative 12 over 100. And they said for this one, you have to round to 2 decimal places. So that is 4,26. Okay, number 3, they asked you to give the nominal interest rate compounded monthly if the effective interest rate is 9% per annum. So then remember we need to use the formula because they're asking for the nominal interest rate. The M1 is on the left. Okay, it's compounded monthly. Remember guys, I told you to write it like this if you're finding the nominal interest rate. So not to write it as I over M, write it as R, that's for rate, over 1200 to the monthly. Right? How many months in 1 year? 12 equals 1 plus the interest rate that they gave us was 9%. And then after that, you can show whichever working steps you want to show. You don't have to show a specific line there. So just show you guys what I did. This, if you type it into the calculator, you can work it out with 1.09. So the opposite of raising something to the power of 12 is taking the 12th root. So that's where that 12th root of 1.09 comes from. It's this answer, and I'm taking that 12 over, it's the 12th root. Type that into the calculator, I got this value. Next thing that you need to do is you need to get rid of that 1. So you need to subtract 1. And guys, here, when you type in -1, it gives you the scientific notation on the calculator. Right? But remember, I told you, you don't have to stress about that. You can write the scientific notation if you want, or you can just see if you have 1,007 -1, it's going to be 0,007. And then after that, remember guys, you're keeping the answer in the calculator all the time. Right? You're not allowed to round off at any point here. Only in your final answer are you allowed to round off. So the last thing that you're going to do is you're just going to take this one and you say answer times 1,200. And then that one is going to round off, the one that's actually the answer. Okay, And here you could obviously add compounded monthly if you want to do it. If you place the time in the exam, don't worry about it. You can practice it. Okay, number 5, they said that Fatima invested money and Bongi bought shares or something. I can't remember now what it was. And then they said that Fatima's money is increasing. The interest rate was 8% per annum compound quarterly. So that's why I'm using the compound interest formula there. Bongi's money depreciated at a rate of 4.5%. And they said at the reducing balance or on the reducing balance method. So that's why I've used this formula. Then they said after 5 years, how much better off is Fatima than Bongi? All right, so you have to calculate how much money is going to be in that account. Right? And because they said after 5 years, that's why I used 5 as my account. And then you need to figure out how much money Bongi's share are worth after 5 years. Again, they have used 5 because they said after 5 years. And now, obviously, how much better off is she? You need to take that amount minus that one, and that is basically how much more she has in the end. You didn't have to write this last bit exactly like I did. You could have also just done that in the calculator. But I'm going to write that down so you guys can see. Any questions on that one? They do like asking questions like this where they're giving 2 different types of interest so that you can compare them. So it's a nice way of testing multiple things at the same time. Now guys, just again, because this didn't come up, but if they ask you, for example, how much interest did Fatima get after the 5 years, or during the 5 years, or over the course of the 5 years, you would take your final amount, the 14,000, minus the amount that you made. Right, just remember that. Please, so if they're asking how much interest, not the interest rate. The interest rate was 8%. Okay, if they're asking how much interest, you're going to take the final amount and you're going to minus the amount that you invested. So that would be 4,859 rand and 56 cents. If they ask you how much money Bongi lost, you would take the 10,000 and minus the amount that it was worth at the end. All right, because obviously the money was 10,000, now it's 7,000. So that was a loss there. Right. Then you have to do number 12. It was just like the one we did in class yesterday. The only difference here, there was only one interest rate. So this one was actually the one yesterday. So the interest rate was 10% biannually, so 10 over 200. So again, they were asking you for how much money was, I think this was invested. No, it was a loan. How much money was taken out of the loan, I think. So that's the p-value that you need to find. All right. So the p-value is just going to be the variable here that you're going to take to the end. There again, there were 3 payments over the course of the 5 years. So after 2 years, they paid 4,000. After another 2 years, they paid 8,000, and at the end, the final payment was 6,000. Right. Again, because now this is the final payment, that means they don't owe any more money. The loan is going to be equal to 0 after making that payment. Okay, so just like the one that we did in class yesterday, you take your p-value all the way to the end of the 5 years at this interest rate. So it's biannually, so we're going to say 5 times 2. Then you're going to minus each of your payments. All right, and if you're looking at your timeline, obviously you need to get out there. If it's T2, that's 3 years that I need to put away. So 3 years times twice a year. For the 8,000, that's 1 year that I need to take away. So that's 1 times 2. And then the 6,000, there was no time left after the 6,000, so there's no interest attached to that amount. It's just minus 6,000, that is equal to 0. Then guys, just like we did yesterday, you now need to solve for P here, right? So you need to get all the other terms on the other side. Since they are all negative on the left-hand side, and I move them across, they're all going to become positive. Right? So then I just work that off. And then what you need to do is you're going to take this amount and you're going to divide it by that bracket. So the whole 1 plus 10 over 200 to the power of 10. You're going to say that divided by that whole bracket, and then that will be the amount. You didn't have to put a comma 0, 0, but I just thought I would because it was a 4 after the 0. So then obviously you can just leave it as 12,389. That's fine. Actually, I have to put that figure. And that's basically the most difficult type of timelines that we can do. And there is one other type where you make a payment every month, and then we can ask you to find that payment. But we decided that we weren't going to go through that this year. We'll do that in the future. Next year, we have to keep the profit formula. Can I show you this way of doing it this year? I'm going to show you this. Talk about that. All right, how are we feeling about finance, right? I'm going to give you the rest of this lesson to start studying. I'm not sure what you guys need to work on the most. I'm guessing geometry, but that's the I don't know if you did algebra at the beginning of the year. Remember all those production equations. We've done exponents and thirds. I don't know how you guys feel about that. That was a while ago. Then we did analytical geometry. We did free graphs. We've done number patterns, which I think is fine, number patterns. But now you must really go over that again, okay? You need to know those formulas. Because yes, it's an easy topic, but if you don't know your formulas, you need zero. Okay, so number patterns is very important. You have to memorize those formulas. Same thing for finance, you need to memorize all of these formulas. Again, it's an easier topic, but if you don't know the formulas, you're not going to be able to do everything. So that's very important. And then the other stuff I think you're going to have to just practice. So, have I posted target worksheets for you guys in the past? Does it sound familiar? Not? Yes, some of them. Okay, let me just quickly check here because then I can post the ones that I haven't before. Oh, it's Mr. Brookman's birthday today. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so I see on your Google Classroom here, there is if you go to classwork, on the side, test preparation materials. Okay, I've posted 2 of these. All right, so these are the target worksheets that I'm talking about. There's one for exponents and surds, one for equations and inequalities. But guys, it's actually 2 worksheets in one. So there's a basic worksheet. And then if you go past the solutions, there's also an advanced one. And then there are more solutions. Okay, so each document that I'm going to post actually has 2 worksheets. So I'm quickly going to post the other worksheets for all the other topics that will be in your exams. Okay, and then you can start working on that. So I suppose maybe page through your workbooks and see, I think you probably remember how you felt while we were working through the topic, or maybe while you were doing tests. You can remember, oh gosh, with exponents, I had no clue of what was going on, so I need to go over that. Guys, please, you can watch those videos again, hey? That's why I record them, so that when you are preparing for your exams, if you feel stuck, if you can't remember, that you can watch those videos without having to wait for me to make a time for you. All right, the videos are all there. I still have to post yesterday's video. I think it just wasn't converting yesterday, so I'm going to fix that now quickly. Check it. I think it is busy here. Yeah, it looks like it's done now, converted this morning. So I'll do that now quickly, and then I'm just going to post new worksheets for you. Someone's hand was up. Yeah, they are, yes. But guys, just the past papers, right? You don't want to use those first because you only have one of each. So past papers should actually be like your last thing that you do. I might have had this talk with you guys before, I can't remember, but I'm just going to say it again. You need to practice the exercises that we did in class, these worksheets. I think I've given you sharp worksheets as well. You need to actually study properly as if you're like, okay, I'm going to go write my exam now. Then maybe on Saturday afternoon or Sunday morning, you sit down and you put your phone away, you put your notes away, you time yourself, right? So you put a 2-hour timer on your phone and you write that exam as if it's the past paper, as if it is now your exam, right? You give yourself 2 hours. You don't look at the memo if you get stuck. If you get stuck, you move on to the next question. You try and you come back if you have time, right? You have to literally like use it as a practice exam. Then when the 2 hours are done, then you look at the memo. Then you mark yourself. Then you can see, oh gosh, I thought I knew what was going on, but I'm actually getting 40%. What do I still need to work on? Okay, so because if you are just looking at the past paper and you're saying, oh, okay, let's see, how would I do this question? You read the question, look at the memo. Cool. Read the question, look at the memo. Then you can just as well leave it. right? That's really not going to be of any help. Okay, so please, because you do only get one paper 1 and one paper 2, keep that for maybe the morning of the day before you're writing, so that you still have time in the afternoon to go over the stuff that you didn't get right. Okay, so I'm going to close that stuff for you guys quickly, and then you can start working. You can come ask me questions.